The explosion ripped through the jungle like God's own thunder, hurling shards of earth and shrapnel into the humid air. Sergeant Harlan Graves hit the mud face first, his helmet skidding into a tangle of vines, while the screams of his men echoed like accusations in the chaos. In that split second, as the world blurred into green and red, he locked eyes with his son, Private Jamie Graves, crouching defiantly in the open, rifle blazing toward the shadows where the enemy lurked. Harlan had never wanted this. Not the war, not the draft that yanked him from his quiet life in rural Ohio at 45, and certainly not the nightmare of commanding a platoon that included his own boy. But when Jamie had come home from college 2 years back, whispering those words, "Dad, I'm gay," it had shattered everything. Harlan, a lifetime factory worker with a backbone forged in high school football and Sunday sermons, couldn't stomach it. His son, the star quarterback he'd raised to be All-American, straight as an arrow? No, it was a phase, a weakness, something the military could beat out like rust from a blade. So Harlan had pulled strings, old buddies from the VFW, begging for a commission, a way to get drafted into the same unit. Fix him, he'd told himself. Show him what real men do. Now, knee-deep in Vietnamese mud, with the Tet Offensive raging around them in early 1968, Harlan wondered if he'd dragged them both to hell for nothing. Jamie fired again, his slim frame steady despite the fear Harlan could see twisting his features. At 20, Jamie was all lean muscle and quiet intensity, his dark hair matted under his helmet, eyes the same stormy gray as his father's, but softened by a vulnerability Harlan had always dismissed as softness. They'd barely spoken since basic training, where Harlan had barked orders at Jamie like he was any other recruit, pushing harder, ridiculing quieter, anything to toughen him up. The other men sensed the tension, whispering about favoritism or feud, but Jamie just took it, his silence a wall Harlan couldn't breach. And then there was Elias, the lanky medic from Boston with the easy laugh and knowing glances that made Harlan's blood boil. Elias Kane, 22, with a faded rainbow pin hidden in his pack that Jamie had spotted one night in the barracks. They'd become inseparable. Friends, Harlan told himself. Nothing more, but he saw the way Jamie lit up around him, the shared looks that spoke volumes in the dim glow of cigarette ends. "Graves, get your ass down," Harlan roared over the gunfire, scrambling to his feet and lunging for his son. A bullet pinged off a tree trunk inches from Jamie's shoulder, and Harlan's world narrowed to that spot of green uniform. He tackled Jamie into the underbrush, their bodies slamming together in a heap of limbs and resentment. "What the hell are you doing, boy? Standing there like bait." Jamie shoved him off, gasping, his rifle clutched like a lifeline. "Saving your flank, Dad. VC snipers, 2 o'clock. His voice was steady, but his eyes flickered with something raw. Hurt, maybe, or the ghost of all the nights they'd clashed back home. Harlan remembered the dinner table arguments, the slammed doors, the way Jamie's mother, God rest her soul, had begged them to stop before cancer took her last Christmas. "You think I don't see them? You taught me that." Harlan grunted, rolling to peer through the foliage. Sure enough, muzzle flashes winked from the ridge. He squeezed off a burst from his M16, the recoil jarring his shoulder. The platoon, 18 boys, some barely out of high school, fanned out behind them, returning fire in ragged volleys. This was Hill 881, near Key San, where the NVA had dug in like ticks, turning the DMZ into a meat grinder. Harlan's orders were simple: hold the line until reinforcements choppered in. But simple meant nothing when your own blood was in the crosshairs. As the firefight dragged on, Harlan's mind raced back to the day it all started. Jamie's letter from Ohio State, folded in his pocket like a curse. "Dad, I can't pretend anymore. I love who I love." Harlan had burned it in the backyard fire pit, the flames licking up the words as if they could erase the truth. Then the draft notice came. Not for Jamie, who'd drawn a high number, but for Harlan himself, a fluke of paperwork that felt like divine intervention. He'd enlisted instead, fast-tracked to sergeant because of his age and VFW pull, assigned to the 1st Marine Division. And there was Jamie, already shipped out after enlisting to prove himself, as he'd said in a phone call Harlan had hung up on. Fate, or cruelty, had put them together in Fox Company. "Medic," someone yelled from the left flank. Elias was already moving, his pack bouncing as he dashed through the muck, dodging roots and incoming rounds. Harlan watched him go, a knot tightening in his gut. Elias was good, too good, with his quick hands and calm under fire, but Harlan didn't trust him. Not with Jamie. The kid had shown up in basic with a sketchbook full of charcoal drawings, portraits of soldiers that captured something Harlan called soulful, in a voice dripping with disdain. Jamie had defended him once, saying, "He's talented, Dad." Like Mom was. That comparison had stung deeper than any shrapnel. The shooting tapered as the enemy pulled back, melting into the jungle like smoke. Harlan hauled himself up, wiping blood, his own, a graze on his forearm, from his face. "Sound off," he bellowed. Voices answered, ragged but alive. 16 accounted for. 2 down, medevac incoming. Jamie was on his feet too, reloading with mechanical precision, but his hands shook when he thought Harlan wasn't looking. "You all right?" Harlan asked gruffly, clapping a hand on Jamie's shoulder. The touch felt foreign, like gripping a stranger. Jamie nodded, shrugging it off. "Yeah, you." Harlan snorted. "Takes more than that to drop me." But inside, the close call gnawed at him. What if he'd lost him? The thought twisted like a knife, mingling guilt with the old anger. He was here to fix Jamie, to show him the straight path through discipline and duty. But War didn't care about fixes, it just broke things. That night, in the perimeter foxholes, the rain came down in sheets, turning the hill into a sluice of red mud. Harlan pulled the first watch, his poncho crackling as he scanned the tree-line. Jamie was 2 holes over, sharing with Elias. Their low voices drifted over the patter, laughter, even, cutting through the tension like a blade. Harlan strained to hear, paranoia sharpening his ears. Remember that time in Boston? The parade. Elias's voice soft. Jamie chuckled. "Yeah, hiding in the crowd, heart pounding like it had burst." Harlan's fists clenched. "Parades? What parades?" "The kind with flags and floats for them?" He wanted to storm over, drag Jamie away, but duty pinned him. Instead, he lit a cigarette, the glow a small rebellion against the dark. By dawn, the choppers brought supplies and mail. Harlan's packet was thin, a letter from his sister, nagging about home. Jamie's was thicker, postmarked from a friend back in Ohio. Harlan watched him read it. The way his face fell, then hardened. "Bad news?" he asked, against his better judgment. Jamie folded the letter carefully. "Just someone I knew. Drafted now. Says he's scared." Harlan nodded, the weight of it familiar. "Fear's normal. Means you're alive." It was the closest to advice he'd given in months. Jamie looked at him, surprise flickering, but then Elias called from the CP tent, and the moment shattered. As the day wore on, patrols pushed out, probing NVA positions. Harlan led one, Jamie on point, a decision that chafed but made sense. The kid had sharp eyes. Elias tagged along as corpsman, his med kit slung low. The jungle closed in, vines like snares, the air thick with rot and cordite. Harlan's mind wandered to the why of it all. Vietnam wasn't just a war, it was a crucible, meant to forge men. But what if Jamie's fire burned different? What if the fix was a lie Harlan told himself to avoid facing his own failures, as a father, as a man clinging to a world that didn't fit anymore? A tripwire glinted in the dappled light. "Hold," Harlan hissed. Jamie froze, then backtracked slow. Elias knelt, defusing with steady fingers. "Claymore," he murmured. "Nasty." "Good eye, son," Harlan said to Jamie, the praise slipping out unbidden. Jamie met his gaze, something unspoken passing between them. Thawing, maybe, or just the illusion of it. Back at base, whispers spread. A new lieutenant, fresh from West Point, had arrived with orders. Reinforce the hill, push to Contien. His name was Reynolds, all spit and polish, with eyes that lingered on Jamie a beat too long during roll call. Harlan noticed, the old protectiveness surging. Reynolds was straight arrow, married, but wore twisted men, or revealed them. That evening, around the flickering lantern, the platoon shared smokes and stories. Elias pulled out his sketchbook, charcoal flying as he captured Tommy Nguyen's grin. Tommy, the Vietnamese interpreter with a laugh like thunder. Jamie watched, mesmerized. "You're magic with that," he said. Elias shrugged. Just seeing people. Really seeing. His eyes flicked to Harlan, bold, then away. Harlan turned in early, the rain drumming his thoughts into mud. Sleep came fitful, dreams of home, of Jamie as a boy, tossing footballs in the yard, innocent and whole. Waking to Jamie's watch shift, Harlan sat up. Can't sleep? Jamie shook his head, thinking about Mom. She'd hate this. Us fighting each other instead of. You know. Harlan swallowed hard. She wanted you strong. Not. He trailed off, the word weak dying on his tongue. Jamie laughed bitterly. Gay isn't weak, Dad. It's me. And this war? It's breaking everyone. He paused, voice dropping. Elias gets it. He lost his brother last year. To the draft, not bullets. Says it's all connected. The hate back home bleeding into here. Harlan's jaw tightened. Elias talks too much. He's my friend. Jamie's tone brooked no argument. Friend. The word hung heavy. Harlan lay back, staring at the canopy. Friendships in war were lifelines, but this one felt like a threat, to the man he wanted Jamie to be, to the family he'd lost when Ellen died. As mortars whispered in the distance, Harlan vowed to watch closer. Fix it, or lose it all. The next patrol went south fast. NBA ambush at a river crossing. AK fire stitching the water. Harlan's platoon scattered, bullets churning foam. Jamie dragged wounded Private Ruiz to cover, Elias patching him mid-fire. Harlan laid suppressing fire, his M16 hot, but a grenade arced toward them, straight at Jamie. Time slowed. Harlan lunged, but Jamie was closer. He kicked it back, the blast blooming harmless but close, shrapnel peppering his leg. Down he went, screaming. Elias, Harlan bellowed, crawling over. The medic was there in seconds, tourniquet flying. Hold on, Graves, Elias said, voice rock steady. You're not dying on my watch. Jamie grinned through pain. Wouldn't dream of it, Eli. Harlan pressed Jamie's hand, the first tender touch in years. You idiot. Why'd you do that? 'Cause it's what you taught me, Jamie gasped. Protect your own. Medevac rotors thumped overhead as they loaded him. Harlan watched the bird lift off, Elias beside him, both silent. For the first time, Harlan saw not a thread in the medic's eyes, but a mirror. Fear, fierce love, the war's cruel alchemy. Back on the hill, Harlan pinned a letter home, words spilling like blood. Jamie's hurt, but alive. Maybe I'm the one who needs fixing. He didn't send it. Not yet. The dust from the chopper settled like a shroud over the airstrip at Da Nang, where Harlan waited, chain-smoking his third pack since Jamie's evac. 3 days of radio silence. Each tick of the clock a hammer on his nerves. The war had paused for him in those hours. No patrols, no briefings, just the gnawing void of what-ifs. What if the shrapnel had hit higher? What if Elias hadn't been there, his hands steady as a surgeon's? Harlan had replayed the ambush 1,000 times, seeing not just the grenade, but the years of distance he'd built between them, brick by bitter brick. The bird touched down, and there was Jamie, propped on a stretcher, leg bandaged thick, face pale, but eyes alert. Elias hopped out beside him, med kit slung over one shoulder, looking as wrung out as Harlan felt. He's stable, Sarge, Elias said, saluting loosely. Flesh wound. Docs say 2 weeks, tops. Harlan nodded, throat tight. Good work, Kane. The words tasted like gravel, but they were honest. He gripped the stretcher's edge, staring down at his son. You scared the hell out of me, boy. Jamie managed a weak smile. Feelings mutual. Thought that grenade had your name on it. Medics wheeled him to the field hospital tent, a canvas cathedral of moans and beeps. Harlan followed, Elias trailing like a shadow. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and despair, cots lined with ghosts, amputees staring at ceilings, burns victims whispering prayers. Jamie's bed was by a window slit, overlooking the South China Sea's distant shimmer. Home away from hell, he joked, but his voice cracked. Harlan pulled up a stool, the metal creaking under him. Talk to me. What's going through that head of yours? Jamie hesitated, fingers tracing the foreline. Painkillers mostly. And regret. Not for kicking that thing back. For everything before. The fights, the silence. I enlisted thinking it'd make you proud, prove I wasn't broken. But it's just made me see clearer. This war's not fixing anyone. Harlan leaned forward, elbows on knees. You ain't broken, Jamie. I was wrong to say that. To think it. The admission hung there, heavy as humidity. He'd rehearsed it on the flight up, but saying it aloud felt like shedding skin, raw, necessary. Jamie's eyes widened, searching his father's face for the lie. Then why'd you come? The draft was your out. You could have claimed age, hardship. Harlan chuckled darkly. Out? From what? Watching you drift away? No. I came to save you. But damn if you haven't been saving me instead. He glanced at Elias, who hovered by the flap, giving them space but close enough to hear. And him. Kane. He's solid. Saved your hide back there. Elias stepped in then, nodding. Just doing my job, Sarge. But his gaze on Jamie was softer, layered with the unspoken. The nights in foxholes sharing secrets. The sketches Elias drew of Jamie sleeping, tucked away like treasures. The doctor came by, a harried major with a clipboard. Private Graves, you're lucky. No artery, no infection yet. Rest up. You'll be back with your unit soon. Lucky. The word echoed ironically. In Vietnam, luck was a coin flip between life and the body bag. As evening fell, the tent filled with the low hum of generators and distant artillery. Harlan stayed, trading stories, real ones, not the polished tales of glory. He spoke of Ellen, how she'd loved Jamie's sensitivity, called it his artist's soul. Jamie shared college snippets, the friends who'd accepted him, the fear of coming home to judgment. Elias joined in, his Boston accent weaving humor into the heavy air, tales of pride marches he'd dodged as a teen, the brother who'd marched anyway and paid with his life in '67. You ever think about after? Jamie asked suddenly, voice low. If there's an after? Harlan's jaw worked. Every damn day. Farm in Ohio, maybe. You and me, fixing fences instead of each other. Elias smiled faintly. I'd take a city. Somewhere with galleries, not graves. The words lingered, a fragile bridge over the chasm of their divides. But war doesn't let bridges stand long. That night, alarms wailed, rocket attack on the base. Scramps tore through the perimeter, glass shattering, screams rising. Harlan dove under Jamie's bed, shielding him as best he could, while Elias herded patients to cover, his comm cracking only when a round punched through the tent wall near his head. When it ended, the tally was grim. For dead, a dozen wounded. Jamie's cot was splintered, but he was unscathed, clutching Harlan's arm like a lifeline. We're okay, he whispered. Harlan held on, the tremble in his hands betraying the terror. Yeah, we are. Rehab started the next day, crutches, physical therapy in a sunbaked yard. Jamie hobbled, cursing, but Elias was there, spotting him like a coach, their laughter a balm. Harlan watched from afar, the jealousy he'd nursed fading into something like gratitude. Still, doubts lingered. Rumors from the front. Reynolds, the lieutenant, sniffing around the platoon, questioning loyalties. Fraternization, he'd called it in a briefing Harlan had caught wind of, his eyes on Elias and Jamie. One afternoon, as Jamie napped, Harlan cornered Elias by the latrines. Level with me, Kane. What's between you two? Elias met his stare, unflinching. Friendship, Sarge. Deeper than most, yeah. We've both lost people. To war, to hate. Jamie. He's kind in a world that ain't. That's rare. Harlan nodded slow. I get that. More than I did. But this place, it chews up the different. You know that. Elias's laugh was bitter, born knowing. My brother's grave? Arlington, for loving wrong. Draft board called it desertion. He paused, eyes distant. Jamie's not just different. He's brave. Braver than me. The confession hit Harlan like a gut punch. Brave. The word he'd withheld for years. He clapped Elias's shoulder. Awkward, but real. Keep him that way, son. Back home, letters piled up. Harlan's sister wrote of protests in Kent, Ohio. Kids burning cards, chanting for peace. Your boy's fight is everyone's, she said. Jamie read his aloud one night. From an old college buddy, out and proud, planning a life in San Francisco. Wish you were here. It ended. Jamie's voice broke on the words, tears tracking dirt-streaked cheeks. Harlan didn't judge. Instead, he shared his own buried pain, the high school crush on a teammate he'd shoved down, the marriage to Ellen more duty than fire. I thought straight was safe. But safe's a lie. Jamie stared. You? Not like you. but close enough to hurt. The vulnerability cracked something open, a floodgate of truths. They talked till dawn, the sea whispering below, weaving a new thread between father and son, not fixed, but mended. Reynolds arrived 2 days later, helicopter shadows sweeping the yard. Tall, Ivy League sharp, he inspected the wounded like defective gear. "Sergeant Graves," he said crisp, "your son's recovering well. Pity about the incident." Harlan bristled. "Incident? Saved lives, sir." Reynolds's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Reckless. And rumors, your boy and the medic. Fraternization undermines morale." Elias, overhearing, stiffened. Jamie, on crutches nearby, gripped them white-knuckled. Harlan stepped close. "Rumors are cheap, Lieutenant. My son's a Marine. That's what matters." Reynolds's gaze hardened. "Discipline matters more. I'll be watching." The threat hung like smoke. That night, Jamie confided in Elias under the stars. "He's trouble. Sees us as weak links." Elias pulled him close. "Not lovers, but brothers embrace. Then we prove him wrong. Together." Harlan saw from his bunk, the silhouette a punch to the heart. Not disgust this time, but ache, for the boy he'd failed, the man Jamie was becoming. He wrote that letter home finally, sealing it with resolve. Reassignment came swift, Jamie to light duty, Elias to the front. Harlan pulled strings again, not to separate, but to join. "We're in this as a unit," he told the CO. "Family sticks." The push to Con-Tien was hell. Monsoon rain swelling rivers. NVA bunkers spitting death. Harlan's platoon slogged through, Jamie on rear guard, leg tender but will iron. Elias scouted med routes, his sketches now maps marked with peril. Ambush hit at dusk, a ravine trap. Grenades rolled, fire rained. Harlan took a round to the vest, winded but alive, calling orders. Jamie covered him, firing true. But Elias went down, hit in the shoulder, blood blooming. "Man down," Jamie yelled, dragging him to rocks. Harlan laid cover, heart hammering. Elias gasped. "Tell him. Tell Jamie." "You tell him," Harlan growled, binding the wound. "Ain't losing you too." Medevac couldn't land, too hot. They humped 3 clicks to extract, Jamie carrying Elias's pack, Harlan half-dragging the medic. Bullets chased, but they made it, chopper lifting them to safety. In the hospital again, Elias's this time. Jamie sat vigil, Harlan beside. "He'll pull through," the doc said. "Tough bastard." Jamie nodded, exhausted. "He is." Later, alone, Harlan squeezed his son's hand. "I'm proud, Jamie. Of you. Of him. Of us, figuring this mess." Tears came then, silent. "Love you, Dad. Love you too, son." Back on the line, Reynolds's report vanished, lost in bureaucracy, or Harlan's quiet word to brass. Peace talks buzzed on radios, but for them, peace was internal. Prejudices shed like spent casings, love enduring the barrage. The war ended for Harlan in '69, rotation home. Jamie followed, Elias too, discharged honorable, sketches sold to fund a gallery in Boston. They met in Ohio that summer, Harlan's farm a haven. No fixes needed, just fences mended, stories shared, a family reforged in fire. Years later, at Jamie's wedding, to a teacher named Sam, under Ohio oaks, Harlan toasted, to saving each other, every damn day. And in the crowd, Elias raised his glass, eyes on Jamie, the circle complete.